It always kicks off the same way. She doesn't look at you as you are. She looks through you at someone else, someone you might become. And you feel it, don't you? That glimmer in her eyes. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's hunger. But it's there. You think she sees you, but she doesn't. She sees a possibility, a project, a character waiting to be written. You're not the man, you're the blueprint. It feels good at first, like you're finally seen, finally chosen. But you're not being seen. You're being scanned, measured, imagined. And what she sees, it's not you. It's the masterpiece she wants to create. You're just the canvas. The fantasy was never about who you are. It was about what you could become in her story. And Carl Jung warned us, not gently, not in the language of self-help books. No, Jung spoke like a man who'd spent his entire life staring into the black water of the human soul. He mapped the unconscious, the vast, invisible machinery behind our thoughts, feelings, and choices. And when it came to women, Jung uncovered something most people still don't want to admit. Women don't just fall in love with men. They fall in love with the idea of men, with the fantasy, with the projection. And the most unsettling part, most women don't even know they're doing it. You think she's choosing you, but what she's actually doing is choosing the version of you she built inside her mind, her own mental marionette. And when you stop playing the role, she replaces the actor, not the script. Jung called this phenomenon projection. And in women, that projection takes the form of the animus, the inner masculine image that lives within every woman. When that animus is immature, underdeveloped, or unchecked, it becomes something dark, something tyrannical. It's the inner voice that pushes women toward chaos, toward danger, toward dominance without wisdom. It's the force that compels some women to romanticize the worst kinds of men and criticize the good ones. That makes them argue from emotion, moralize without clarity, and exert power without awareness. Jung didn't dress this up. He said plainly that it can become a kind of spiritual possession, a takeover of consciousness by an archetype, one she doesn't even realize is driving her. And you fall for it. Because nobody ever taught you to spot the difference between being wanted and being known. You confuse being chosen with being understood. So when she tells you you're different, you believe it. You want to believe it. But you're not different. You're just the newest character in a story she's been telling herself since she was a little girl. And when that illusion begins to crack when you stop playing your part, you feel blindsided, broken, rejected. But the truth is, you didn't fail. You just stopped being convincing. You stopped fitting the role. So what's the way out of this mess? Jung had a name for it: individuation. The lifelong process of becoming a whole person. Not a mask, not a role, but someone real. Here's the part most men don't want to hear: almost none of you will take that path. Why? Because you were trained from the beginning to seek validation, to chase approval, to measure your worth through a woman's eyes. So you keep signing up for the same role over and over, and when you're no longer entertaining, they replace you. Not because you're not enough, but because they never wanted the real you to begin with. Individuation doesn't come with applause. It's not sexy. It's not Instagrammable. It's brutal. It requires you to face the parts of yourself you've buried. The weak, the lost, the insecure, the ashamed. It demands that you stop blaming women for not seeing you and start seeing yourself. Jung knew what most men will never accept: you don't become a man when you're chosen. You become a man when you choose yourself. Your worth is not a prize she gives you. It's something you earn by standing up alone, clear-eyed, spine straight, fully awake in your own skin. A man who has met his unconscious, wrestled with his demons, and claimed his own soul, that man can't be seduced by fantasy. He's not a puppet. He's not a projection. He becomes the author of his own reality. Jung once said that the modern man's greatest tragedy isn't rejection, it's self-betrayal, the constant reshaping of himself to fit what women want, or what he thinks they want. You call it compromise, love, being easygoing. Jung called it what it truly is, the slow erasure of your soul. When you ignore your own psychic development, when you turn away from the work of becoming whole, you become a slave to her projection. You twist yourself like clay, bending to please women who don't even know what they truly want. You stop being a man. You become a mask, a mimic. A shapeshifter who nods and smiles and agrees and performs, until you forget who you even were before the performance began. And here's the kicker: women feel this. Deeply, instinctively. The very things you think will make her love you, your predictability, your loyalty, your availability, are the same things that often make her lose attraction. Why? Because the feminine Jung taught is drawn to mystery, to edge, to the man she cannot fully define, cannot fully predict, cannot fully control. The moment you hand her every part of yourself, no resistance, no mystery, no boundaries, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, replaceable, disposable. And still, most men would rather play that role than stand alone. You fear being alone more than you fear being fake. You'd rather live a lie than risk being rejected for the truth. So you perform, and perform, and perform, until the applause dies out. But Jung was clear: freedom lies in solitude. True individuation requires what he called a psychological death. The death of your false self, the one who performs, the one who pleases, the one who chases. It's a death that must come before you can truly live. And yes, it's lonely, terrifyingly lonely, because the more awake you become, the more you see. You begin to notice the masks everyone wears, the games they play, the desperate dances for validation. And when you speak of what you see, they mock you. They accuse you of being distant, arrogant, cold. But it's not coldness, it's clarity. You're not the problem. You're the mirror. And people hate the mirror when it shows them something they're not ready to face. Jung knew this. He spent decades with patients who would do anything to avoid confronting their shadow, the parts of themselves they've rejected. And he saw something in women too, that many cultures raise them to avoid that confrontation altogether. They're told they're perfect just as they are, that their feelings are truth, that their instincts are divine. But Jung didn't buy into that illusion. He said the greatest threat to women wasn't men, it was the animus. The voice inside them that speaks with false certainty and moral superiority. If she doesn't face it, she becomes enslaved by it, projecting it onto every man she meets, blaming him for the war she refuses to fight within herself. And then along comes you, thinking you'll save her, thinking you'll be different, thinking your love will be enough to finally earn the real her. But you're not saving her. You're starring in her fantasy, and you don't even know the script. Here's what you have to understand. Projection doesn't ask for your permission. It just happens. It doesn't care who you are, it only cares how well you fit the fantasy. And when that fantasy falls apart, when reality sneaks in, the person who was once your admirer becomes your accuser. Not because you did something wrong, but because you failed to stay in character. Jung described this betrayal as inevitable when people refuse to take responsibility for their inner worlds. You didn't lie to her. You didn't deceive her. What you did, or rather what you failed to do, was live up to a role you were never aware you were playing. She's not angry at you. She's angry at the myth you failed to embody. That's the cruelty of projection. It replaces reality with illusion and then punishes the real person for not matching the illusion. And as long as both men and women stay asleep to this dynamic, they'll repeat it over and over. The same heartbreak, the same confusion, the same arguments, just with new faces. Each blaming the other, never realizing they're both dancing with shadows. And here's the twist of the knife: that woman who once looked at you like a hero, she'll one day look at you like the villain. Not because you changed, but because you didn't complete the transformation she imagined. The fantasy collapsed. The mask slipped. And now you're the enemy of her inner story. And she won't even realize that it was her script that doomed it from the start. Jung said this kind of psychological drama was common when people project unconscious material onto others. The deeper the projection, the deeper the disappointment. And men, especially men who've never done the inner work, are particularly vulnerable. Why? Because you're chasing love instead of living truth. You let yourself be picked, be molded, be used. You allow yourself to be dragged into someone else's dream because you're too afraid to face your own emptiness. You think you're being noble when you say things like, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." But Jung would have looked you dead in the eye and said, "That's not love. That's spiritual laziness. That's a man handing over his soul because he's too afraid to carry it himself. Because if she carries it, you don't have to." But no woman, no matter how kind, how beautiful, how strong, can carry the weight of a man who refuses to hold himself. And when she drops it, which she must, you'll feel betrayed. But that moment, that collapse of the illusion, is actually your first real shot at freedom. That's the moment you finally stand face to face with the truth. The journey of becoming a man was never hers to guide. It was always yours. And now you've got a choice. You can blame her. You can get bitter. Join the mob of men online who mock and resent women, not because they understand women, but because they never had the courage to confront themselves. Or you can do what Jung demanded. You can turn inward. You can start the slow, terrifying, liberating work of individuation, of confronting the fact that you've been playing roles your whole life, of peeling back the layers until you finally face the one question that changes everything. Who am I without the performance? Because here's the truth. Until you face the part of yourself, you've abandoned the soft part, the needy part, the forgotten part. Every relationship will be a transaction, a manipulation, a lie. And every woman you meet will just be a mirror reflecting your own incompleteness back at you. But once you do the work, once you stop running, once you integrate your own inner feminine, your own capacity for emotion, for intuition, for chaos, for beauty, you stop needing women to complete you. You stop chasing. You stop performing. You start standing still, rooted, grounded, awake. And from that stillness, something shifts. You no longer attract women who want a character. You attract women who want the truth. You'll recognize her when she shows up. She won't demand you perform. She won't try to rewrite your script. She won't lure you in with exaggerated praise or emotional theatrics. She won't be looking for a savior. She won't be looking to be saved. Why? Because she's already walked through her own fire. She's done the work. She's met her own shadow. She's dismantled the animus. She's burned through the illusions. And because of that, she doesn't need you to carry her soul. She carries her own. And she'll look at you not as a fantasy, not as a project, but as an equal, as a man. Not someone to mold, but someone to meet. And in that meeting, there's no desperation. There's no clinging, no performance, just truth. And that kind of love, the kind that comes from freedom rather than need. Jung called that the rarest and most dangerous kind, because it's not born from illusion. It's not a transaction. It's not the desperate search for completion. It's the connection between two people who have already completed themselves. But be warned. Most of you will never reach that place. Why? Because most of you will give up. You'll go back to the mask, back to the game, back to the temporary high of being desired by someone who doesn't even know you. You'll trade your soul for attention. You'll live and die as a character in someone else's story. Because becoming real, truly real, still terrifies you. But if you're one of the few who keeps walking, who keeps standing in that sacred discomfort, who keeps stripping away every false layer you built just to be liked, you'll reach a moment that feels like standing at the edge of something you can't quite name. And what you'll find there is yourself. The real you. Not the charming mask, not the obedient boyfriend, not the stoic nice guy, but the man underneath all of it. The man who doesn't need to be chosen. The man who doesn't shrink or contort just to fit in. The man who is whole. And when that happens, everything changes. Women stop being your mirror. They stop being your compass. They stop being your reason. They become something else. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you love them not because you need to, but because you choose to. From a place of strength, from a place of clarity, from a place that knows without apology who you are. Jung never gave us a tidy roadmap. He didn't offer hacks, tricks, or steps to become some high-value man. What he left us was far more difficult and far more liberating. He left us a warning. A warning that any man who refuses to confront his own unconscious will become a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left us a challenge. A challenge to stop pointing fingers at women for the roles we willingly play. A challenge to stop waiting for someone else to make us whole. A challenge to stop asking, "Why won't she choose me?" and instead ask, "Why haven't I chosen myself?" Because the man who finally does that, who chooses himself completely, without begging, without bending, without apologizing, is the man who becomes untouchable. You can't seduce him with fantasy. You can't trap him in performance. You can't reduce him to a supporting character in someone else's drama. He's not acting anymore. He's writing the story. And if you've made it this far, if you've felt this message vibrating somewhere deep inside your chest, this is the part where I ask you to make a choice. Don't just let this be another piece of content, another emotional hit, another that was deep you forget about tomorrow. Do something, like the video. Share it with another man who's still living in the illusion. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because this isn't just for you, it's for the next man. The one still stuck in the loop, still chasing shadows, still thinking if he just performs well enough, he'll finally be loved. Let's wake him up. One man at a time. Now here's what happens once you've stepped fully into this path, once you've individuated, as Jung would say. You notice something strange. People start to get uncomfortable around you. Not because you're rude, not because you're loud, but because you no longer fit the categories they use to feel safe. Your presence alone becomes disruptive, not because you're trying to be, but because you're no longer playing by the rules. Jung said the individuated man isn't celebrated by society. He's feared, misunderstood, often dismissed as cold or distant or arrogant. But the truth is far more dangerous. You've become untouchable, unbuyable, unmanipulable, because you see through the game. And here's where it gets ironic, maybe even a little funny. The very people who used to crave your validation now resent you for not needing theirs. And women especially, those still living under the spell of projection, will say you're emotionally unavailable, that you're too much in your head, too distant, too analytical. But what they really mean is they can't control you anymore. You've stepped off the stage. You've stopped reading from their script. And without that script, they don't know what to do with you. Because you're no longer a fantasy. You're a man. And Jung, in his darker moments, said something brilliant. The gods have become diseases. What ancient people once called divine possession, being overtaken by some archetype, some mythic role we now call neurosis. And men chasing validation, they are the most spiritually sick of all. You think it's romantic when you say, she's my everything. But Jung would have told you the hard truth that what you call love is actually your refusal to carry your own soul. You handed it to her. You made her the keeper of your meaning, your identity, your purpose. And when she drops it, which she must, you feel betrayed. But that betrayal, it's the greatest gift she could give you. Because in that moment, when the illusion shatters and the pedestal collapses, you finally see the truth. It was never her job. The work of becoming a man that was always yours. And when that truth hits, you've got two options. You can take the coward's path, blame her, hate her, swear off women entirely. Or you can do what Jung demanded. You can turn inward and begin the slow, painful, liberating work of becoming whole with no woman, no audience, no applause required. Because the woman you've been searching for out there, she's not a person. She's a reflection, a mirror of the part of yourself you abandoned. And until you go back and reclaim that part, the emotional part, the vulnerable part, the creative, intuitive, instinctual part, every relationship will be a lie. But once you do the work, once you've brought all those pieces home, something incredible happens. You stop needing women. You stop chasing. You stop performing. You just stand. Solid. Still. Fully present. And from that place, you don't attract women who want a fantasy. You attract women who want the truth. And you'll know it when she shows up. She won't fall for your potential. She won't inflate you with flattery. She won't need you to play a part in her drama. She'll stand there whole and look you in the eye. Not as a goddess needing worship. Not as a broken thing needing fixing. But as a human being ready to walk her own path beside you. No masks. No projections. No games. And in that moment, something rare happens. There's no clinging. No desperate need to complete each other. Just truth. Shared between two people who've both faced their shadows, who've both walked through fire, who've both burned through their illusions and stepped out the other side as something real. And that kind of love. That kind of love is the most powerful and the most dangerous kind, because it asks for nothing and offers everything. But let me warn you, most of you won't get there, because most of you will quit. You'll settle for the fantasy, settle for being liked, settle for the hollow thrill of temporary desire, because the pain of facing yourself, truly facing yourself, still feels unbearable. But if you have the courage to keep going, if you keep standing in the silence, If you keep letting every false layer burn away, eventually you'll reach the edge of something terrifying. And on the other side of that terror, you'll find yourself. And from that moment on, women won't be the mirror you use to feel like a man. They'll become something else. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you'll love them not out of need, but out of choice. From a place of strength, from a place of wholeness, from a place that finally unapologetically knows who you are. This is what Jung left us with. Not a path, a dare to walk the lonely road of becoming real. A dare to stop blaming women for the roles we keep auditioning for. A dare to stop waiting to be chosen, and instead choose ourselves fully, relentlessly, honestly. Because the man who does that, he doesn't need fantasy. He doesn't need applause. He doesn't need validation. He writes his own damn script. And when you reach that point, when you're living that truth, you won't just change your life. You'll become the kind of man who changes the world. One fearless step at a time.